Hello and welcome to Quizzy Monday. We had a great evening of quizzing tonight. We started off with Mastermind, and we have Paddy Pamment from Mastermind with us tonight. In fact, let me put this up. Paddy Pamment from Mastermind with us tonight. Then we went on to Only Connect, a fine winning performance from the Crustaceans. We got Dennis with us from the Crustaceans. And then we had University Challenge, a game that looked like it was going nip and tuck right to the wire. Bristol came out on top, but we are delighted to have Katy from Oriel with us tonight. So that gives us our lineup: Mastermind, Only Connect, University Challenge. But there is an added bonus. We've also got Ben coming on later from Fantasy University Challenge. So if you want to get involved in that game, he will be revealing his analysis of the players you might want to be looking at when you pick your Fantasy University Challenge team. Now, we'll also reveal the nominations for Quizzer and Team of the Week, and we will close with Champagne Moment of the Week. Now, I can see that some people are already putting comments in the chat. Steve Oldham talking about important vote ahead of tonight's Quizzy Monday. I'm presuming that is the Who Had the Best Hair vote that was on Paddy Pamment's Twitter. If not, check that out. Hang on. Although I vote for Skinner's Ice Cream of Boston in Lincolnshire. I could be talking about completely the wrong thing. Gerard, qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? I'm confused. Moi aussi, Gerard. Can someone ask Paddy not to be late into work tomorrow? I don't want his newfound fame meaning he can swat in any time. And referencing University Challenge Swan, he should strut. So the chat is already going on, and we will try and bring in stuff over the course of the show. But now let us bring on the guests. Enough of me waffling. We do have Paddy,
Hello
Dennis,
there, Gareth. How are you
and
doing?
Katy. Paddy, I don't know if you caught that, but you're being looked at, you're being observed. Don't be late to work.
That'll be the big boss, Ben. Absolutely. Well, I will do my level best to get in on time. There are train strikes, though, Ben. Apologies, Gaffer, if I am in late.
Now we do have a slight controversy because you put out a poll on Twitter for who had the best hair. Was it you? Was it Katy? Michael's saying surely the captain of the Croots wins best hair. We do have a late challenger. Sorry, was that Paddy?
They don't count. Sorry, Liam.
Okay, so it is a two-horse race. It is down to Paddy and Katy. Check that out on Twitter. We will, of course, look in on the big news from the world of quiz later tonight. But let us start with Mastermind. Paddy, resplendent in a banana shirt tonight. You're rocking the watermelon. How was your Mastermind experience?
It was absolutely delightful, except for the 4.5 minutes I spent in that black chair. I think that it was an object lesson in being slightly underprepared, not quite going with what you think is going to be in the scope of what you're meant to revise. And all of my quizzing nightmares came to roost in the general knowledge. There were times where I should have zagged when I zigged, but it's a wonderful experience, and it was absolute delight to hang out with Suzette, Katy, and Blake, of course, who performed really well. He's got fantastic potential. But yeah, it was great. Other than how I did, pretty much.
And tell us about Bill Evans. Why did you select Bill Evans? It's you don't get a lot of jazz musicians as topics, and usually when you do, it'd be somebody I've heard of. Bill Evans, completely new to me. So what was it about Bill that made you think I want to go on TV and be tested on my knowledge?
So for context, I did a degree in music at Katy's University Challenge appointment tonight, Bristol. And I did a lot of jazz as part of that. I really started to get into Bill Evans, I would say, at the age of about 17. I took that forward with me through my university days and fell in love with the way he played. And he's the pianist I try and emulate when I play myself. But I thought he's a fascinating character, particularly because he was quite troubled in the latter stages of his career and his life. He was also beset by tragedy when the likes of bassist Scott LaFaro dying, kind of at the apogee of his career, and Scott was only 25 when he passed away. I thought there would be a lot of complex knowledge to learn there, and I really want to get to grips with it.
And the experience of getting your head around a subject like that, preparing it, putting yourself in a position to answer questions, did that kind of enrich your enthusiasm for him? Or, we've heard some people say it kind of takes the fun out of it.
Certainly so, but with any jazz musician, there's usually a lot to delve into when it comes to the listening, which is obviously the primary way I was kind of, exposed to Bill Evans when I was younger. So I had so much going on while reading and revising, and so much more I was listening to, so much I was trying to get into, and not that much of it came up tonight, unfortunately. But that's the way the cards are dealt sometimes.
It looked at one point, there was an answer you gave George Russell. I think the actual answer was something like Ockerman or something like that. That looked like it came at a point in the round where, had you got that, you could have ploughed on, but maybe it knocked you a little bit. Were you did you start to feel the pressure in the middle of that round?
I think I felt the pressure from about then, and I could feel myself sort of melting away slightly. Thinking, oh, orchestral, George Russell was my immediate go-to, because the other answer would have been the appropriately named Gil Evans. So nope, discounted him, went straight for Russell, and that was wrong. And I thought, right, every single recess of my knowledge is going to run away from me now. And I started to truly kind of hit the panic button with my answers. I passed when I shouldn't have on Bill Evans' agent, Helen Keane, and a couple of other things happened. It was a combination of factors really that conspired to meet my demise, as it were.
There's nothing quite like knowing you've got a camera pointing at you to kind of ladle the pressure on. Katy, Dennis, have you felt that sort of pressure yourselves?
Yes, I had my Mastermind experience was a similar kind of thing. Just that thing where you get a few questions in and you just realise that what you've revised is a different set to what you're getting thrown at you, and then you slightly panic.
Katy, in a team game, do you get that sort of pressure?
I mean, it's not best practice, but you do kind of think, if I don't know this, there are 3 other people sat next to me who I hope will. So when we were sort of revising for being on the show, we did sort of take it on as someone will do these subjects and someone else will do these subjects. So when you hear a question come up and you go, oh, that's not something I know, it's something I revised, I'll just sit this one out. And it turns out no one else knows it. And you sit there and you sort of go, I can't even take a guess because I've got nothing. Obviously on Mastermind, it's completely different. Like, you have to rely wholly on yourself. And I can't imagine like the sort of pressure that you are under. Like, both of you, like, having that experience, I think both of you have done so well to have been able to put up with that, because I don't know if I could.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of armchair critics, and it goes for all of the shows you've been on, but a lot of armchair critics don't understand what it's like. It's not just the 4.5 minutes, as you say, Paddy. Of course, there's a whole day of getting ready and sitting around in a green room doing nothing, and are you too nervous to eat? I mean, I've had that before shows, and and then you've got to perform at the end of that. There's quite a lot that goes into that. How was your day building up to being in the black chair?
It was actually pretty serene, I would say. We had actually had our date moved from a Tuesday to a weekend to the Sunday 5 days later for filming, because I think someone had probably got COVID. Is my guess, but of course the production team aren't allowed to tell you. So I was put up in a fancy hotel. Happened to run into a couple of other contenders who have been on this series. So that was quite relaxing. We, of course, discussed nothing at the time, but it was good to sort of gauge their experience, put me at ease. And I mean, any last-minute revision there was just going to go straight in and straight out. I felt fine until you hear the music and you see why the show is designed the way it is, with the solitary spotlight and the black chair. And if you get something wrong, there's no hiding, is there?
You did look very relaxed in the chair, though, Paddy.
Oh, yeah. I thought that would help. I thought, my customary kind of, elan would, really suit, put me at odds, really, throw Clive Myrie off. That's not how it works.
It's the way to go.
I mean, maybe it's about time that Quizzy's had like artistic impression scores, and you can your elan, your joie de vivre can get you additional points. I'm pitching that now. BBC, if anybody's watching, you can have that format. Just a small kickback to me. We've got Brendan, who's one of our regular viewers, says Suzette in Mastermind is the wife of my local vicar in London. There you go.
Lovely.
It's small world news. Gerard, of course, is making puns. Jazz can't even do the hands well. Pam is commiserating. Pam was on last series. Bad luck. I know how you feel. At the end of the first round, it wasn't where you wanted to be, because obviously you would have wanted to have aced that. But you're also a good quizzer. We know you're a really good quizzer. Anybody who's paid attention to things like online Quiz League of London, stuff like that, you're good. So did you think, I'm still in this?
Absolutely. I thought, I thought with 5 points my race was run. I then saw a couple of single-figure scores from other general knowledge, other specialist subjects. Blake, I thought, was answering quickly, promptly. He'd done his homework, and I didn't know him all that well, but I thought Blake is the person I'm going to need to catch. I then sat down thinking, if I have a really good run, getting a good rhythm for general knowledge, I'll be fine. And then I inexplicably get my second question wrong on, I think it was EastEnders versus Emmerdale, because I had so long to think about it, and just it fell apart again. But yeah, I did back myself, and I'll be foolish not to, because you're only there once in a series anyway, or once every few years, depending on how often you go back. But that was that. And yeah, I did back myself though.
Yeah, and I think you're right too. But you need, when you're in the position you were in, you need to get on a roll, and you need that sort of thing where the inspired guesses are coming in, and you kept hitting the bar, and as you said earlier, you kept zigging rather than zagging. I wrote down here, couldn't buy a guess. It was like you just you went for her rather than she, and it was just that sort of night. Clive Meyer even said about the chair does that to you at the end of that round. How do you feel? Are you emotionally wrung out? Are you drained? Are you depressed? Are you thinking, thank God it's over? What's happening at that point?
I knew I was 1 point ahead, which was a relief come the end of that round, because it meant, someone's have to get at least 2 to get ahead of me. And I thought, what? Sometimes the chips fall as they may. I felt hard done by one question in particular, which was on blind Paralympian cycling couple Laura and Neil Faki. I've thought about them every day since, and I'd never thought about them before that day, is all I can say. Yeah, it was a mixture of bad luck. I thought a fairly tough set for me, just nothing landed, and that's how it falls.
I felt you had a tough set. It felt tough to me at the time. There was one question about the underskirt, and maybe it says more about me than anything. But I was just, when the answer was given, was it underskirt or underdress, something like that. Peplum. Yeah, still never heard of it.
One of the top 5 words that women are more likely to know than men.
Is it? I know that
because 4 weeks before I filmed that episode, I think David Stainer put up a poll online that showed words that men are more likely to know than women, and vice versa. So it was there, and it wasn't coming in time, which is why I grimaced while it came up. But them's the breaks.
Well, indeed, and if it doesn't fall for you, it doesn't. We got some comments. Gerard saying the Ryder Haggard question was so long, I'd almost forgotten it was she before it got to the end. Michael chipping in, absolute stinker of a question. The Paralympian cyclists. So I think there is, it's not just, it's not sour grapes here. I think there is a genuine consensus that you did get a sticky set of questions when what you needed was a dream set of questions to allow you to kind
of... playing along with him in the studio, I think I got 17. But taking it, maybe that's a bit generous. Taking away, a couple for pressure, I still would have done better than on my own set. But that's, that's quiz. It happens.
Yeah. It is. Your abiding thoughts now, I guess, you've had time to reflect on it. Will you do it again?
Oh, I'd love to. No question. And the next time I do, I know exactly what to expect, and I'm gonna keep improving for it. So yeah, I'm not going to be so presumptuous to just say watch out, but I will be better prepared. So hopefully, that'll reflect.
Okay, before we move on, what in terms of your preparation, what would you do differently next time than this time?
I would mess around more with my flashcard settings. I had everything on too long a delay, so the knowledge wasn't all there at the time. I'd read the texts far more thoroughly, and I'd read them in the way that a question setter might pick up a book that they've got limited time to work with. They're the two things I would change. As for general knowledge, you can't really legislate for what comes up, so that's a bit of luck.
You certainly can't. Well, you gave it a shot, which is more than 99% of the viewing public will ever do, if not more. Yeah, it would be great to see you on again. You with your shirts, your elan, and yeah, hopefully next time we'll see you push through to the semi-finals. But well done, Paddy. Now, before we move on to Only Connect, we're going to run through the winners of the votes for Quizzer of the Week and Team of the Week from last week, and also a thank you to our latest Patreon member. Quizzer of the Week last week was Evan Lynch for his victory in the Quest Grand Prix. Second was Dow Jackson for a Quiz League London President's Cup Full House. And third was Clive Dunning for an online Quiz League Full House. Team of the Week was Team India, who won the Asia Pacific Quizzing Championship. Second was Newnham College, who won University Challenge last week. And third was Harlequins, who won last week's Only Connect. You can nominate a quizzer or a team for next week's vote. Go to tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. Nominations have to be in by 5 p.m. every Monday. So thank you very much to Vincenzo, our latest member. And you might have seen our review of the House of Games book, and that was play tested with our members. So that's the sort of thing you can look forward to if you join up. Now, Only Connect. We found the Croot family and the Crustaceans were back with us, victorious, basking in the victory from their first round and facing off. Dennis, when you go into it, having got a game under your belt and having won that game and knowing you can't go home this time, did it change your kind of team's attitude to it?
Slightly. I think it's the knowing you can't go home after a match, I don't think really helps that much, because I don't know. I mean, I guess some people might find it relax them a bit more, but I don't think so. But just having had one game and you've played through it and you know you can do it is nice. Yeah. Especially because that's the thing. It's the difference between watching at home or playing in an online version or everything else like that. You just need to see, can I do it? Can we do it? There.
I mean, same thing, I guess, for you, Katy. So you came close in your first round, but again, in your case, you did face going home. Was there a different mindset with University Challenge?
I think our situation was a bit different because we had so much, I don't want to say drama because it's sort of misrepresentation. We had a lot of things happen in the run up to filming this episode, which I won't talk about now because I don't want to take all the time away from talking about Only Connect. It was hard going into it knowing that it was like our last chance. But I think that sort of pushed us to be the best that we could be. Not that we hadn't tried to do that in the first round, but obviously having that experience go into it, knowing the sort of flaws that we had as a team that didn't help us, and managing to deal with those in the interim. It was interesting to approach it differently, but at the same time, there's only so much you can change in such a short amount of time. So It was just a case of whatever happens will happen, and it did happen. So
sorry, we just got a comment from Lewis saying Pamment and Marchant both robbed tonight, but man, I love them both.
Love
Oh,
them too,
Lewis, he's such a nice guy. So yeah, Dennis, you started off. You opened the show with the first round.
Yeah.
How did you find that first round? It went pretty
It
well
felt-
for your team.
It went okay, but it just felt a little bit of a struggle. I think we would like to be buzzing in a little earlier on things, and there were several of them where it's just like not till the last one, and even then we're not sort of going, oh, it's definitely that. I mean, the opening question, the political parties symbols, that feels like it should have been much easier than it felt at the time. We worked out they were symbols of something or other, but yeah, it just felt that after the first game was a little easier, that actually it did feel like a little tough to start with.
It felt like with the political parties, the wart treatments, and you got the Whitney covers. It was one of these things where I don't know if it was inspiration hitting late or whether it was you didn't quite have the answer earlier, and
I think so the wart treatment one. I mean, I guess some people might have known that early on, but it was only really from the selection of things that once we had all the answers there, that we were able to work it out. The Whitney one I should have got sooner. But I was watching it with my wife, and she obviously didn't know, but yelled it out after the second one. So
yeah, and we also learned apparently you can't name the best little whorehouse in Texas on BBC Two on a Monday night.
No, apparently not. Well, it's nice to skip around these things a little bit.
A knowing wink. But yes, you picked up 2 bonuses as well, didn't you? I think in that round, the Minecraft one and the island names one.
The Minecraft one, I feel, is just a classic practice quizzes slight advantage there. That there are just some things where you don't know for sure, but there are plausible guesses and stuff. And if it's a video games thing and it's not obvious from other things, then you go for Minecraft. The islands one was just a bit unfortunate on their side. I think they just jumped a bit. They saw one clue and jumped a bit too quickly at it. But
yeah. So it was a good first round for your team, but you don't have much time. A bit like Mastermind. You go into studio, the music comes on, the lights go down, and you're into it. You're pretty much, I guess, straight into round 2 without any time to kind of reflect or deconstruct. Between yourselves?
Not really. I mean, there's a little time in between if there's any particular little pickups and things, although they can save them to later. But generally, you play round 1 straight into round 2 with no pauses as long as everything's working.
Yeah. Any other questions, Katy, Paddy, that kind of jumped out to you from that from the early stages of the match?
Nothing in particular from me. I thought that there was a certain caginess would be my only sort of offering, as you've kind of touched upon there, Gareth. Insofar as you could go for things a little bit earlier, but then you're wary of of bonuses, going over to the other side, as did happen with the Creek family, particularly what was it, the islands clue you mentioned, Dennis?
Yeah. They just jumped in. I think worked out one thing, went, oh, it's that, and then didn't. They'd taken a little bit longer. I don't think they had a huge amount on the clock. You never do, but yeah.
I think.
I think as well, in terms of the not necessarily about the performance, but the questions themselves, like you were saying with the wart treatment one, I think also with the political party logos, they were the sorts of things where if you'd guessed early, there were so many possible things it could have been. So if like the wart remedies one, you could get so broad with saying, oh, they're like remedies. Okay, remedies for what? I'm sure if you looked hard enough, you would find these sorts of things posited as remedies for so many things, which I guess is the sort of risk you take with, do I buzz in early, but also is this question trying to lure me into something? I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do it. My brain doesn't work in an only connect friendly way. So,
well, I mean, we saw some fantastic play from you tonight, and we'll get on to that, Katy. So don't be doing yourself down on that. But round 2, I thought for me one of the outstanding moments of the night was the Rubik's Cube answer. I just thought that was simply brilliant.
I mean, the trouble with that one is, well, I mean, I think Eli's the one who actually sort of came up in with it, but it was, okay, we've seen the other things, what's left? To go for that one earlier, you would have to be incredibly confident that you knew how a Rubik's Cube was arranged. I mean, and why it would be arranged that way? Why couldn't it be arranged another way? Isn't the whole point of the Rubik's Cube is you can? I still don't understand how you would be supposed to get that earlier.
And to picture it mentally in 3D as well, you're kind of rotating it. I just thought that was superb.
I guess if you're a Rubik's Cube person, then presumably you can just do it mentally because that's, I don't know, maybe that's part of how you learn it.
Quite possibly. There was some lovely questions. I did like the Kevin Bacon one.
I'm just so annoyed I didn't work out exactly what was going on earlier because that feels like that should be. I'm generally a big film fan. I like that sort of thing, but just to not quite make the connection until right near the end, put it all together until right at the end. I mean, Kyra Sedgwick is obviously a bit of a giveaway with the being married to him.
And in hindsight, seeing the 3 circles to indicate degrees, it's one of those things you're like, but of course, after you see it, I'm sure watching it back, Dennis, you
and it's especially a thing where you're looking and you know that's something important the whole time, and there is that particular style on Only Connect with some questions where there is a little extra visual clue, and it's just about and until you kind of go, oh, of course it's that, then it's really bugging you because you know there's something going on there. And it's like the ones where the clues are written in a color or something, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, and we had some kind of classic Only Connect style questions in terms of the lyrics paraphrased, and with the "Call Me Maybe" one, and the word, the capo, capon, capone, growing. We've seen these sequences before, but you still got to spot them. In amongst everything else that's going on, you've still got to identify something, see the relevance, and I thought, capon is not the type of chicken that it is going to jump to mind unless you've already got that kind of mindset going.
I don't know quite where that came from, but yes, that was just the thing where of course it's that. As once there was that just running through different chickens and cockerel kind of things to see what works.
Yeah. The big question of the day, Steve is saying, did Emma complete the cube by the end of filming day?
I think it was just handed over in a half-done fashion, but I may be wrong.
Well, I'm disappointed we weren't shown that denouement, but never mind. So yeah, the one that looked frustrating, if there was anything that was frustrating, was the
whole program.
17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21.
Yeah.
Because you're all fishing in the right sort of territory.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where I did think I should have known what year the Antwerp Olympics was in. We were just running through what I know some of them round then, but I couldn't quite put the order together. But even then, I probably should know what year Queen Victoria was born. But oh well. But without having something like that where you need to be quite precise, and with all 3 clues, you're like, well, I know roughly when it is. It's just not enough.
Yeah. But you went into the walls 11-6 up, so a bit of a recovery from the Croots, as befits a good team. We know they're a good team, but you must have been feeling pretty chipper about the walls. I guess, until you played yours, because that felt like a nest of vipers, red herrings all over the place, and felt like a bit of a struggle.
Yeah, no, it was, well, the whole thing that really got us was, what was it? Having two alloys with weird names, because there is an inclination to go, oh, in each set there are normally, you know, 3 things that you've heard of and 1 that you maybe not, which is that's the sorts of things you circulate. So that threw us. But I mean, still, we went in with enough of a lead that basically we went in with, it was like, okay, as long as we get 5, 6, 7, then we'll probably go in with a lead into the ending, which is nice. So it didn't feel like there was so much pressure. But obviously, while you're doing it, sat there kind of going, we kind of know what's going on, but we just can't work out how to have permutations. Is quite stressful watching the time click down.
Yeah. Katy and Paddy, how did you get on with the walls, watching them from the comfort of your sofa? Paddy probably with a slew of messages coming in about Mastermind.
Yeah, there were a couple, but I was watching, sort of as frustrated as the crustaceans were in a way with a lot of their red herrings. I was focused on drums. I couldn't see them for the life of me.
The drum one was so annoying because it felt like there were too many red herrings, and then in the actual one for the last one to be cable drum, I was like, it felt. I don't want to say it felt wrong, because the question writers do a great job. But you know, it wasn't where my head was going in terms of thinking about drums.
What is a cable drum? Have I?
It's the thing that holds cables.
Yeah, so these big wooden,
and then a thing that holds cables.
Thank you. I hadn't worked that out yet. So yes, of course it is. Yeah, that's the thing. There's some of these things where you don't work them out at the time. You see it on TV and you still don't work out them. And someone says a thing, and you, that is a thing.
Looking, because this would have been the first time you saw the Croot family's wall. What did you make of their wall? Because, you know, points wise, much of a muchness, the two teams. But when you were watching that, you know, there was some brutes of some misdirections there as well.
I mean, I guess the big thing is the walls vary quite a lot in style and maybe difficulty from show to show, but I don't think we can complain about any unbalanced nature there. The two walls had the same thing going on.
Yeah. Well, you left the walls 6-point lead, so you must have then, because you only find that out when you get back into studio to do missing vowels. At that point, knowing how good your team is on the buzzer, I imagine you're feeling pretty confident, but there was some fantastic buzzing from your team. Eli particularly was on fire, but it was great work by your team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that much of a lead, you just kind of think you need a couple of buzzes just to sort of hang on to things, which is nice. But you do occasionally get a situation where, I guess the other team could come out and just take the first 4 down, and then that's basically almost got it back to neck and neck. But Eli's reliable, quick on the buzzer.
Yeah, you didn't give him a sniff. Maxed out the first set. Cooks, thieves, wives, lovers. I mean,
didn't work that out at the time either. Didn't see that until afterwards. Yeah.
Well, a sequence within a missing vowels round, but no, a nice successful 10-point win. The next round, of course, presumably is straight knockout from here.
I believe so. Yes.
It's always hard to understand how the competition works, but you must have gone in off the back of that then with some confidence. You've beaten 2 teams, but one of those was a winning team, so you must have felt very confident. Did you have much time to prepare for the next round?
I think that was where the gap was. So we played the first two. I think the first filming block, and then the next one. It feels like a year. I mean, it is the better part of a year ago now.
Right.
But yeah, so I think we had a bit of time. But basically, we sort of sat down afterwards and said, well, there isn't really that much obviously we can do to prepare extra. We did I mean, before this we'd rewatched old episodes and things and tried to play along with them and stuff for practice, but there wasn't an obvious hole in our tactics or knowledge, so all you can do is just go off and do your regular quizzing kind of practice.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to seeing what happens next with the Crustaceans. Fantastic team, played brilliantly, and yeah, I mean, it's only going to get harder from here because we've seen some tremendous teams this series, absolutely tremendous teams. So really looking forward to what comes next. What's going to be coming next on the show is we're going to be talking about University Challenge, but before that, I just want to play a couple of short clips. Our latest review is of House of Games Question Smash. We play tested it with a group of All Things Quiz members. To find out what they thought of it, having played the questions in the book, watch the video, and if you're interested in becoming a member, go to patreon.com/allthingsquiz. Chris Yates won last week's What is a Question competition with this question. The answer was Brazil, and his question was, France's longest land border is with which country? Well done, Chris. Now, we released a new answer in need of a question on Sunday morning. That answer was Giant. People sent in questions, and you can now vote on the long list to try and find our finalists. Go to tinyurl.com/WITQ-Giant. That's tinyurl.com/WITQ-Giant. Okay, so now we turn our attention to University Challenge. And I'm going to bring Ben from Fantasy UC in. Hi, Ben. Good to see you again.
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Good. So, Katy, we've heard some of your thoughts about this match, but one of the big surprises, I guess, was a change of personnel on your team. Was that, what's the story behind that?
So Tom Ford, who was on tonight's episode, was part of our original lineup, and Ben, who was in our first episode, was our reserve. But about 2 or 3 days before we were supposed to film our first episode, Tom unfortunately got COVID. And I think at that time there were still precautions in place, but obviously you don't want to be taking it into a filming studio where you will be near people. The other issue with that is that Tom lives in Norway, so he legally could not get to England to film because of sort of international restrictions and stuff, and him having a positive test. So literally 2 days before we filmed our first one, we sort of slotted Ben in and tried to get as much practice in with him as possible. And then I think in past seasons it's been the case that if you swap to your reserve during the series, you can't then swap back. But because ours was like a COVID situation, it was completely out of our hands. The production team said, yes, you can have put your main team member back on, which was nice that both Ben and Tom got the opportunity to be on the show. And I think both of them have their own strengths. Obviously, I think I didn't watch tonight's episode at the time, and I haven't seen the statistics, but I remember Tom being very strong when we filmed. Ben was one of the strongest players on our team in the first episode as well. So they both did really well. It is sort of, it was a bit of a, it didn't throw us, but it was something that we weren't expecting to happen. So I'm glad that we sort of dealt with it in the way that before we started filming, we were all already really good friends. So it wasn't too difficult to just sort of change and get on with things.
But earlier you said about, the way you could sit back and let others take questions, etc. When you've only got one reserve, that it's difficult for them to cover everybody's strengths. So did that in that first round kind of mess around with the plans and the team construction? Or did it actually, do you feel it not make that much difference?
I think we got quite lucky in terms of the questions that were on fell very nicely into Ben's strengths. And Ben was the reserve because he is an all-rounder. That's what when we did sort of team selections, I wasn't involved, but I've heard from people who were involved that they were trying to find all-rounders. So yes, even though he's a medicine student and you expect him to go to the sciences, he came in and was answering all these geography questions and sort of pop culture stuff he was getting. So it wasn't a case of us being like, okay, Ben, you need to come in and like do everything that Tom would have done. It was a case of we trusted that his knowledge was there enough, and it was a case of the questions did help with that, I think.
Yeah, and Tom came in tonight and did well. He got 5 starters, which, you know, by any stretch of the imagination is a good performance, particularly when, you know, you've missed out on the previous match and it's all new to you as it was to the team in the first game. What I found really interesting this week with your team, like last week with Newnham, you got 500 people in your college and you get a team that good. There are 500 people in Newnham and they get a team that good. What is it about your collegiate system or the team selection process that means that from 500 people, presumably a number of them not eligible and a lot of them not interested, that you get teams that are that good, that competitive?
I think a lot of it is how sort of intimately everyone in the collegiate system knows each other. So I was involved in choosing our team for next year's application recently, and we went into it sort of already knowing who was likely to apply based on who'd applied in previous years, who'd done well in previous years, already knowing everyone's strengths in terms of knowing everyone's subject areas, but also what they do in their spare time and what they're interested in. I think it does make it a lot easier in terms of putting together a well-rounded, balanced team, more so perhaps than at another university where it's less, or like it's more spread out. People perhaps don't know each other as well. You've got like more people applying for the same 5 positions. Obviously, it's not too much of an issue because you do get amazing teams from places like Bristol, like Sheffield, like UCL, who do have so many people to choose from and still manage to find like such a tiny amount of people who are so amazing out of, I'm sure, a much bigger pool of people who are so amazing. So
tricky. Paddy, did you ever go for it when you were at Bristol?
I did, yes, in my first year, and in my second and third I applied. But my first year, I made it onto our team, but we unfortunately were not selected for that year's edition, that academic year's edition. It was quite a difficult process, mainly because no one had the faintest clue how to sign up for it. I found out through a flyer on the floor of the SU. Rather than through any conventional means. I was like, oh yeah, University Challenge, I've heard of that, I'll give it a go. Turned up to a written exam with, I'd say, a few dozen other people there, and then just got whittled down, did another one and was selected. So I can imagine that the talent pools, while certainly, you know, it's an order of magnitude or several orders of magnitude greater than it would be at someone like Oriel. I think the selection process is maybe slightly more robust at Oxbridge colleges. So you're always going to get, and also an Oxbridge college is always going to have a few pretty clever clogs like Katy. So, you know, there's always going to be competition there as well.
Yeah. Dennis, you've been on UC as well? What's your experience?
10 years ago now, what? And very similarly to Paddy, I saw a poster for it on the back of a closed door. He put it up on a door, but it was like one of the main access doors into like the Union Bar or something that was always closed. And I think I only happened to notice it because I was probably slightly looking out for it, having failed to apply at my previous university. But yeah, and it was similarly that someone had set up a little written exam thing, but there was no formal structure, no organisation at all, really. I think I don't know who at the union had just decided to organise things, but then we did the exam, and then they basically said, "Okay, you're the top 5, you're the team."
On the other hand, I was not about to let people not apply. I mean, in the past sort of year or so at Oriel, our 2 college bar reps, Alex and Tom, have done an amazing job at getting people interested in quiz. So they've started running sort of bar quizzes weekly or bi-weekly. We were running one in Freshers Week. I sort of showed up, stood on the table with a microphone and did a sort of rallying speech to all the new first years about how they must apply and that it was going to be our year for victory and that they should all join in. So, I mean, it was a case of we wanted to get for next year, like, as good a team as possible. And that is making sure everyone knows, you know, how it's going to happen, who to talk to if they're interested, where to go, like those sorts of things. Because you do get people who miss out on the opportunity because they just don't know how to get involved, and it is a shame.
Definitely a shame. Well, there are a number of talking points from tonight's show. We could fill a whole show with it, actually, because it's quite interesting. And you if you haven't seen it, it's worth watching, Katy. It was good fun. But you know, we had McLaughlin starting with 3 negs, 3 times he buzzed in, not letting him let it get to him, and then coming in with 7 buzzes. Fantastic. When 3 negs could have seen somebody shrink under the table. Brilliant performance from him. Loved your red panda mascot. It's always good to have a mascot. Red pandas rule. There was a wrong person answer.
Oh,
moment,
yeah. I
haven't
thought
seen
that
it
was going to get
before.
cut out and then it was left in. So
Yeah, because that was really unfortunate, because that, again, was part during your comeback in the latter stage of the game. You know, whether it could have made the difference or not, we'll never know. But that was unfortunate. Was that? Did they have to deliberate on that? Was there a pause? Because it seemed pretty instantaneous on Paxo's part tonight.
yeah, there was a pause, like, just to sort of reset and let us know what had happened, but there wasn't any deliberation. It was straight away they were like, we can't allow that. I think they were like, we won't take any points off, obviously, because it wasn't an incorrect answer, but they couldn't give it to us. So it's just a case of making that clear to us and then moving on safely, because I think they didn't want to cause us any disruption, which obviously it did, and like you can't deny that it didn't, but it's not something that I think could have been avoided. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, you sort of, if you've got that idea in your head, and I think this is where sort of Uni Challenge varies from Mastermind. Obviously, in Mastermind, you can't answer the question halfway through, whereas in Uni Challenge, it is, you know, you're trying to get there before the question finishes. That you do sort of autopilot and, you know, start answering as soon as possible, which is, you know, I keep saying things are a shame and they are a shame, but, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I think when, you know, you're in the heat of battle and you're playing catch up and you want to move the clock on a bit, you know, hearing Roger telling who he's said when maybe a number of you have pressed the buzzer, I think it's an understandable thing to happen.
Yeah.
I can't remember seeing it, certainly not recently. It's unfortunate. What was good on your part, brilliant fast buzz on the clash. Absolutely superb. And then almost more than that, I really enjoyed your kind of sounds a bit like Franz Ferdinand answer in the bonus. And it's like, well, there's a reason for that. But, you know, again, it shows the value of people throwing stuff out there, and not kind of being shy about, you know, because you could conceivably have said the most stupid band suggestion in the world, and people on Twitter would have been guffawing in your direction. But I thought that was really good on your part. Is that something that your team kind of talked about as a tactic?
I don't think it was. I think that was a sort of heat of the moment thing, in that Tanmay and I both went, this sounds like Take Me Out by Franz Ferdinand, who are a band who, and I will defend this, do not make the widest variety of music. So I think it was completely fair enough for us both to sit there and go, sounds like Franz Ferdinand, we'll just say them. Surprise, surprise, it was. Which was nice in terms of this being our second sort of pop music round. There was sort of situations after the first one where we were quite disappointed with how our first music round had gone. So it was nice to have that sort of boost of confidence in A, getting the starter in the music round and going, right, we've got a chance to redeem ourselves, and then B, throwing out things that we didn't know, but being much closer or like on the mark compared to in our first round when we were saying answers that were 25 years away from the actual song.
You say Bristol did a good job getting a lead, and you pulled it back with what turned out to be 3 starters from the end. You were within 5 points. Do you know how close things are at that point? Are you aware of that?
Yep. So you see like the scores on the desk in front of you, so you can never escape knowing. But what you don't see is the clock. So you kind of have to judge it based on, you know, that the music round's halfway through. You know that the second picture round is 3/4 of the way through. That's the point in which we sort of, or at least I don't want to speak for everyone else. I looked at the score and the second picture round and went, right, shit, we've got no time left. What can we do in the next 5 minutes? And it is stressful, like not being able to see exactly how much time you have, but still knowing that the end is coming. But at that point, like, things can change last minute, and things do change last minute. I think that's what's even more stressful, is knowing that that's a possibility. So you know that you can't sort of sit back and go, oh, it's near the end, it's been decided. You know, you do have to keep pushing and hope that it sort of works out. But I don't think we could have lost to a better team. Like, Bristol are amazing. Obviously, in their first round, they went up against Durham, who are, I think, one of the strongest teams in the competition at the minute. So for Bristol to have gone up against them first round and got a huge score in terms of like highest scoring losers, it was massive. And then to come back and have such a great performance tonight, I would not sort of discount them doing. I mean, I definitely wouldn't discount them doing amazing the rest of the competition. I think that they have potential to go reasonably far. Like, maybe, I want to say maybe to the final, because I don't know. I've not been sort of keeping up with the series perhaps as much as they should. But I know, like, having seen their performances so far, that they are an amazing team. So,
well, I mean, I think your team did yourselves great credit. Played really, really well over 2 matches. What's your kind of abiding takeaway feeling having been on University Challenge?
I'm glad I got to do it. I think I remember when I was the first COVID lockdown in March 2020, I was like just about to start my A-level exams, and then obviously that got cancelled. I said to my tutor, the next time you'll see me will be on University Challenge. So I was like, I can't sort of not fulfill that now. And to get to do it in my second year of uni was great. And it was such a great opportunity. I met so many amazing people. I got involved in like online quizzing because of University Challenge. So like so many people I know now who are amazing, Paddy. I would never have had the opportunity to meet and do tequila shots with if I'd never been on Uni Challenge. So
Brilliant. Well, that's a fantastic note to kind of endorse the experience of going on University Challenge. Now, your team was great. We saw a great team against you tonight, Bristol. Ben, who is with us, runs Fantasy University Challenge, which you can find on Twitter. Is it at fantasy_UC?
Yes, at the underscore.
There you go. I just extrapolated that from your name there. Tell us how Fantasy University Challenge works, how people can get involved, and then just give us a few of your views about some of the standout performances we've seen over the first round.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I'll try. First of all, congratulations and commiserations to everyone else on the call. It's interesting hearing about your experiences on those shows. So, Fantasy University Challenge. I've done it. This is the 3rd year I've done it now. It's taking the concept of fantasy football, Fantasy Premier League, and applying it to quizzing, specifically University Challenge. So the idea is you get to pick 4 players to form your own fantasy team made up of any of the players from this year's competition that have made it to the second round. You have a budget of a certain amount, in this case it's 20 million, and each player has a price based on the performance in their previous match, which is based on some scoring done through a system by Jack McBee. I always like to give him a shout out because he does a lot of work on Twitter. You might have seen his scores if you follow on University Challenge Twitter. So it's all based on that. and then get points for your team based on how well they do in the successive rounds. Sort of switch out the players and see how they do. It's, I think, a fun way of just kind of following along different players and seeing how they do.
And obviously, yeah, you could switch your team later on. So, who are the most expensive players after round 1?
Yeah, okay, so I have a list out in front of me. So this is just based on the individual scores from the first round. So teams that did particularly well in that will be higher up. Top of that list is Cunnanan from University Oxford, who's the only triple point scorer individually. So in the Fantasy League on 10.3 million. There we are.
Wow.
Double figures. But on that list as well, other names, Sharry from Queen's Belfast, further down as well, Dodds, Coulthard, Courtauld, and Ellis from Newnham.
Ellis was brilliant last week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super.
So that's some of the big players in that list as well. But I found in this year at least, I had some sort of favourite teams as well, and some of those appear on them as well. So like say Ellis, Newnham, I think is a fan favourite, at least for me and a lot of people on Twitter. That's a great team this year.
Wonderful team. So tactical tips then, because obviously you can't just buy the 4 best players. So what are you looking for from your supporting cast?
That's a good question. I don't think I'm any voice of authority on here. I think you've got to stick your finger in the air and see how it goes. Often it's just based, I've on the Twitter, I've got all the sort of faces and the names against them. So often I think it's just remembering kind of standout performances from previous games. Like you're not going to remember exactly how well and the specialists of different people. So it's just a case of like, oh yeah, I remember that person did well and was good at playing the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
One final question then to really put you on the spot.
Ooh.
Who's going to win? Not who's going to win Fantasy UC. Who's going to win the series?
I mean, I think who's going to win, I've got no idea. You're better off asking Katy, who's probably knows some of the teams and is more involved in the quiz world. Who I'd like to win, I can answer. I'd say either Newnham or Courtauld were really cool teams that I think just that were the sort of conferring and the kind of energy of those teams, I think. And based on that, I reckon they could make it pretty far, either of those two.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us again, Ben. I'm sure we'll see you later in the series to kind of catch up on how things are going with Fantasy UC.
Certainly.
We are going to very quickly now look at the nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week for this week. When we come back, we will close out by running around everybody to find out what your champagne moment of the night was. Here are this week's nominees for Quizzer of the Week. Scott Blish for a full house in the International Culture Challenge. Brian Craythorne for 7 out of 8 in the Online Quiz League. Mehran Etabari for 7 out of 8 in OQL USA. Josh Height for the highest scoring 12 out of 15 in Pop Solos. David Hesp for 7 out of 8 in the Online Quiz League. Andy Kravis for 7 out of 8 in Online Quiz League USA. Evan Lynch for 14 out of 15 in the Quiz World Series. Tonight's Mastermind winner, Paul Sinha for 7 out of 8 in Online Quiz League, and Kenji Shimizu for 7 out of 8 in Online Quiz League USA. And tonight's Team of the Week nominees, Jolly Luck Mixtures for an outstanding win in the OQL Cup and Plate. Tonight's Only Connect winners, tonight's University Challenge winners, Warrington for their Merseyside Quiz League President's Trophy win over Wirral, and We're Still on Mute, the 3rd lowest placed team in OQL USA who beat the Division 5 leaders. You can now vote at tinyurl.com/QW12DECA. That's tinyurl.com/QW12DECA. Voting is open until Friday at 6 p.m. So as ever, this was recorded before we knew who'd won tonight's shows, but the vote, which is now open at the address you saw there, and I'll put in the description below, does have the correct names, I believe. So tonight's champagne moment, it can be anything you like. It can be something you did, it can be something somebody else did, it could be a question, it could be a witticism, it can be anything. What was your champagne moment? We'll start with you, Paddy.
Oh, not much to choose from for me. I think the way I sat down in the chair, if I'm perfectly honest, it all went downhill from there. But the lovely Ariadne on Twitter has clipped that, and I'm going to be downloading that because in fairness, the only reason I'm going to blow my own trumpet, I think I looked amazing when I sat down. It was an air of superiority that I did not back up.
Yeah, I think you got the two spot on, and the sartorial elegance, the hair. Now, whilst we're talking about hair, people who are with us from the start will know there's been a poll running on Twitter as to who had the best hair on Quizzy Monday tonight. The choice was Paddy and Katy. Paddy, what's the winning vote?
Oh, it got quite close. Katy pushed out at one point to about 58 to 42. There was a late surge in favour of myself. However, Katy, with 71 votes cast, wins it with 52% of the vote to my 48. So,
Close.
Well,
congratulations.
there you go, Katy.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I'll be following it on Twitter later. That's a lie. I won't. Actually, I will be taking bids. I'll find out how much. Since I won't find out my Fantasy University Challenge worth, I'll find out how much people want to pay for my hair.
Well, indeed, update us. We'll cover this breaking news in the coming weeks. Okay, brilliant, Paddy. Thank you so much for that. Dennis, what was your champagne moment?
Well, I mean, just because it was so nice to see the on Only Connect the Call Me Maybe question. I mean, it's a great question. I know it's a standard kind of thing for low C, but we really liked it. And also, the three of us were sat there just going, because I think we worked out quite quickly as well. We were just like, they're going to get this. If they haven't got it already, they're going to get it, which is nice. Which is nice.
Lovely. Katy, how about you?
I think watching Mastermind, gosh, this is it. Blake, is that his name? Powering through the Torchwood questions. It's nice to see someone come on and be, sorry, Paddy, so into their special subject that there was nothing that was going to stop him from like getting all those questions, and he just powered through them. And I was like, you have to respect it.
He was fantastic. I wouldn't have been any sort of match for him on that form. He played brilliantly, and I can't wait to see how he does as well.
Yeah, wonderful. Ben, how about you?
I think for me, you've already mentioned it, but the Clash quick buzz from Katy was a moment of brilliance in the match.
That really was incredibly rapid. I mean, again, we at home we don't know how much you hear or see of things before you're able to buzz, but that one there was only a fraction, wasn't it? Tiny fraction before you buzzed in. So
yeah, I wasn't counting it when we were filming. It felt faster than when I got the Moody Blues one in our first episode, but that one people were also quite impressed by. So it's nice to be, like people are liking what you're doing. I sort of went into it. I was like, I'll get the starter and then I'll sit out and let everyone else do the rest of the work. I've done my bit. So yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Good. For me, it's kind of hard to pick. I think there's some interesting things tonight in the shows. I did like the Torchwood specialist subject round, being a bit of a geek myself, and remembering all those episodes, some of which I haven't watched for a long time. But I think I really liked the bonus set on bands who had worked with Letts, the director. I thought that was nice. I think that was the Session bands one. I really liked that set. Just it appealed to me. But just it was a great night of quizzing, and I think on a night where there was some absolute dickheads on Twitter saying stuff that they should not have been saying, I think it's well worth reiterating that we don't get Quizzy Monday without people who put themselves up to do these quizzes, to be scrutinized for our entertainment, and just immensely grateful to all of you for contributing to what was a really enjoyable evening of quiz. And thanks to everybody who's been watching. Chris, bring up perhaps some less good memories. But Steve says it right. Quiz is for everyone. And TV producers are making some really good strides at the moment in that respect, and long may it continue. Thanks so much to everybody who's watched tonight and put comments. Sorry, again, as usual, we didn't get through half of your comments, but again, a lot of interesting chat about kind of why you didn't go to university or your experiences at the university. So hope you enjoy chatting amongst yourselves. Don't forget, every day 12 to 2 we've got lunchtime quiz time on Facebook and Twitter, where we release this question at 12 and give you the answer and some information at 2. We got what is the question, which will release a new answer in need of a question on Sunday morning on Facebook and Twitter, and you can vote for this week's what is the question long list at tinyurl.com/WITQ Giant, and you can vote for quiz and team of the week at tinyurl.com/QW12DECA. All that remains for me to say is that next week we will be back. We've got Bhagwan Manku, who you might remember from Only Connect the last series. He's on Mastermind next week, so we'll be seeing how he gets on, and hopefully we'll have some other people who I'll be tapping up over the course of the week. But until next week, thanks again so much to Paddy, to Dennis, to Katy, and Ben. We will see you next week. Stay warm, stay safe in the snow, and we will see you again this time next week. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.